I've got the minutes of the 4th of October 2022. Oh yeah. Can I have some apologies, please? What have you got?
Councillor Kevin Mitchell.
Kevin Mitchell. I've got the minutes of the 4th of October. You all agreed I signed those as a true record. Okay. Declarations of interest. Those of you who've got any declarations of interest, please, you know what to do and how to do it in that time. There is no part 2 on this occasion, and there are no public questions on number 5. I'm going to go now to item 6, which is the revisions to street naming and numbering policy. And most of us who are councillors are quite familiar with the numbers, sequential, odds on one side, evens on one side. We all know our roads, where the letter boxes are in every house nearly. And so we've got the recommendations. I think these are your recommendations, Emma, aren't they? This is from City. If not, so we've got we've got the 2 recommendations, Emma. I'll let you do this. This comes under city development.
Okay, that the executive recommends approval and council approves revision to the council's street naming and numbering policy, including the proposed amendments in paragraph 9 as identified by the customer focus scrutiny on the 6th of October 2022. And the approval of future revisions to the policy is delegated to the director with responsibility for planning and development in consultation with the chair of planning committee. That's how it was me.
Okay, thank you very much. Bruce, this sounds like a good job you've got. Would you like to talk to your paper, please?
Well, welcome to the fascinating world of street naming and numbering. So just as quick background, as it says in the report, this is the council's policy, but it's implemented by Strata on our behalf, and that runs really well. So this report proposes some minor changes to that policy, which are set out in red in the appendix. Hopefully they're self-explanatory. The report went to scrutiny committee on the 6th of October, where a number of questions were raised, and as you'll see in paragraph 9 of the report, that has led to some further proposed amendments which seem reasonable and valid in the context of the policy. As the recommendations say, there's the second one is that future amendments are delegated to the Director of City Development. Hopefully it's all self-explanatory, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, are we all content? And all the sequential numbers are fine? You'll have to explain that to me, why some roads do one to that sort of stuff. And I'll take you to Farm Hill and you can explain to me how those numbers were done up around there. But that's another issue. So if we've got no further contributions, or if nobody wants to indicate, those are the 2 recommendations. I'm going to proposals from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please?
That has been carried, Chair.
We now move on to item 7, the Devon Carbon Plan, and the clue is in the title here. We've got 6, one recommendation which has got 6 parts to, but there is an additional recommendation which the portfolio holder for climate change will read at the end as 2.7, and you will do that. So over to you, Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. This does work. Thank you. As the Chair has said, there are 6 recommendations currently as they stand. Quite a lot of text, so they're up on the board there. I don't intend to read them all out. I think key ones to note are the 2.2 really is, given that Devon Carbon Plan target for net zero 2050, in line with the government's goal for the country, members may wish to reflect on the implications for the City of Exeter's goal of a net zero Exeter 2030. Transport is one of the largest sources of carbon emissions for the city and county, and the consequences of reductions to net zero by 2030 are profound. Members may wish to satisfy themselves that the 2050 goal provides a sufficient policy context for the City of Exeter's net zero plans. And that really leads into the additional recommendation, which, as the Chair said, will be 2.7. And that reads, to ask Devon County Council that they identify Exeter as an early innovation zone or test bed for net zero initiatives. And that then aligns our aspirations with the county's aspirations.
Okay, thank you for that. And is it Emily? You're going to speak to it, and David? David first, and then Emily. Right, I'll propose the additional recommendation.
Oh, sorry.
I second that, Chair.
Okay. So in speaking to it, David, and I'll come to you, Emily, you will explain why we put that additional request in. Be in a position to do that? If not, Cream will pick that up. Okay, because somebody's going to say, well, what's that in there for? You know, and we need to explain it. So, David, you talk to what you need to talk to.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, okay. Okay, right. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So this report's for members to note the Devon Carbon Plan. So it's been developed and overseen by Devon Climate Emergency Partnership. So we would obviously like to thank the team for pulling the Devon Carbon Plan together. And now I won't go into detail into the carbon plan myself tonight, because we've got Emily Reid from the Devon Climate Emergency Partnership here to present to us. So I think one of the points to highlight in the report is the difference between the city net zero target of 2030 and the Devon target of 2050, and the potential impact that may have on delivering net zero in Exeter by 2030. So as Duncan has already mentioned and highlighted in section 13 of the report, transport in Exeter is the third largest carbon emitter. So it shows the need to work very closely with Devon County Council as the Transport Authority and transport providers in the city on decarbonising transport across the city. So the City Council has 3 officers represented on the various Devon Carbon Plan meetings. So there's myself in the resources section, the service lead for net zero and business in the resources and impacts group, and our net zero project manager, Joe Pierce, in the tactical group. So I'll take it you've all read the paper. I'll hand over to Emily, who will give you a presentation and take you through the highlights.
Shall I remain seated then? Well, thank you. Shall I hold it on? Okay. That sounds clear. Thank you for your time this evening and consideration of the plan. I'm Emily Reid. I'm the Devon Climate Emergency Partnership Project Manager. And this evening, just would like to take the opportunity to remind you of how the plan was developed, what the plan covers, plans for the oversight of delivery, ways in which the plan can currently be viewed by the public, and activity to date delivering the plan, because it is already being implemented by the partnership, and how to keep in touch with the work of the partnership. So it's a really broad partnership that was established in 2019. It includes all of the local authorities in Devon, the geographical area of Devon, so including Plymouth and also Torbay as local authorities. But actually, local authorities only make up approximately a third of the partnership. It also includes third sector organisations such as Devon private organisations such as Western Power Distribution and sector representations such as NFU. So it's really broad, and collectively they've agreed to work towards net zero by 2050 at the latest. And I would like to stress that it is at the latest, because we're aware that many of the partners have earlier targets. Date brought forward so that national policy can support the ambitions of the partner organisations, but the partnership recognises when the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles will not end until 2030, and the limited mechanisms to enforce the public to carry out behaviours in line with net zero when national legislation doesn't allow us to. But nonetheless, we want to see greater ambition in 2050. We're also working to improve the resilience of Devon's environment and prepare communities for the warm world that we're already seeing. To date, the partnership has been funded by Devon County Council for the past 3 years. So the Devon Carbon Plan has been developed by an independent net zero task force that was appointed by the partnership from the beginning. It's got 15 specialists covering a range of themes, and is lucky enough to be chaired by Patrick Devine-Wright from the University of Exeter, who's also a lead author on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. So we've got some great expertise in there. And the Devon Carbon Plan will nest between the national policies and, for instance, Exeter's own plan to achieve net zero. So it's a strategic county-wide plan. So the plan was developed through a variety of opportunities for public input. There was an evidence gathering phase in the first instance. Anyone could submit ideas through the website in a call for evidence, and we had almost 900 responses to that. A youth parliament meeting with 75 pupils from 15 schools across Devon, and thematic hearings that brought together expertise in sort of round table meetings across Devon, covering the themes that are represented in the chapters of the Devon Carbon Plan. This evidence was synthesised by the task force into an interim Devon Carbon Plan that also, within the interim Devon Carbon Plan, earmarked issues for further public deliberation at a citizens' assembly. The interim Devon Carbon Plan was put up for public consultation, and the citizens' assembly was slightly delayed due to the pandemic, but in the end we held it very successfully, facilitated by an independent facilitator with expertise in holding those sort of democratic forums. There was another consultation following the recommendations that came out of the Citizens' Assembly, and then we have brought together all of this evidence gathering and public participation into the final plan that you've seen circulated with the paper. tree planting, soils, and so on. So I'm just going to run through each chapter very briefly. So cross-cutting themes, things like behaviour, knowledge and skills, spatial planning, finance, procurement and commissioning. Purchasing power of Devon's organisations such as local authorities and NHS and so on. Reduce emissions from unavoidable biodegradable wastes and wastewater treatments, and support communities and businesses to transition to net sources. Storage, and as I said, some fossil fuels may still need to be burnt in exceptional circumstances. So there will be some instances of carbon capture and storage, or where greenhouse gases are produced from non-fossil sources as well. The built environment, we've got a lot of houses to retrofit and a lot of commercial properties to retrofit. But we also need to make sure that all new build is net zero as soon as possible, and also there's opportunities for reducing emissions from things like street lighting and so on. Transport, very much aligned to your own plans, and I'm really pleased to see the emphasis you've got on active travel and sort of 20-minute neighbourhoods and so on. So yes, we need to reduce our need to travel, shift to those sustainable transport options, and use technology to reduce emissions from vehicles. Food, land and sea, we'd like to see greater demand for nutritious, sustainably produced food, which is a great opportunity for local economy. We do need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve carbon storage from farming. So that is interventions to reduce livestock emissions, such as nutrition, breeding, so on. So to date, we have proposed this governance structure. This structure could result in, and what that might do for our capacity to actually deliver projects. So there's some proposals for a slightly more agile So we will keep you updated on that, but I just wanted to let you know that plans on this are evolving still. So as you would have seen in the paperwork that was attached to today's meeting, there is a quick read summary of the plan, but you can also access, so the quick read sets out for individuals, communities, organisations and local policy plan on our website according to their needs. So there has been a lot of activity to date. We haven't been waiting for the plan to be totally finished. across Devon has been secured to help improve the energy efficiency of public buildings, but many others. We do and so those are probably the best ways to keep in touch. Okay, that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Emily. That's interesting. I suppose we'll visit that website. Just talking to the last recommendation that we added in. Kareem, could you just help? And then we've got all the information out before us. Thank you, Kareem.
To get to 2050 is challenging. It's also the case at the county level. And I know with the county plan, you're trying to bring everybody with you, and the pace at which you can move, you have to negotiate, and everybody understands that. The city's been involved with implementation work, so our focus has been on trying to get with practical actions. And we've got lots of examples where we've been working on specific interventions and some of the challenges associated with that. We also face the government. So one of the big messages from the Southwest is we claim to be if you like, of the country. And that's a combination of our expertise in marine, but also sort of environment, and also the nuclear contribution. So one of the challenges for us as a city when we go to government and say the reason why you need to invest in Exeter is because we're trying to demonstrate to the country how you get to net zero, and that building on, so Patrick as an example of that, is there's an expertise here that kind of naturally lends itself to saying to government, this is a place where you have that expertise and we're up for this and we want to be able to make progress. And for us, there's opportunities as a consequence of that pace. So the challenge for us is going to be how do we reconcile the county's ambition for 2050 with a national pitch, which is difficult to argue ambitious if the government's target is 2050 and the county is 2050. Well, it's not really ambitious in that sense, though it's immensely challenging. And actually, when I look at that, there's technology which hasn't been invented yet, which we need to invent in order to deliver some of those things. So deliver some of this because, as I said, the science necessarily is not there proven. So it's not to make light of that. But what I am concerned about is I don't think the city should be frustrated in its ambition when presenting to government as to why government should be investing in this place as the identify Exeter as one of those places where innovation and really the kind of demonstration, if you like, of that can be done at the earlier level so that the county doesn't have to worry about then different timelines, can explicitly say in Exeter, we may try things and accelerate progress ahead of that 2050 goal. And I think that would help everybody then, helps the city, helps us pitch into government as to why we need to get some support. And it allows the county to face, in the context of our overall plan, rural constituents who might, for example, that. So that's the issue. It's a recommendation which tries to marry the city's objective of a net zero 2030 with a county ambition of 2050.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make it clear before we have a is that we are aiming for 2030. That's where we're staying. So that's where we're staying. That's what that says there. We are aiming for 2030 and we're still working to 2030. And I want to make that perfectly clear to everybody now. So is there any contributions, Anne?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions on that, it was really helpful. My suggestion would be that at 2.5 of the recommendation, rather than an annual update to strategic scrutiny, that it should be a biannual update to strategic scrutiny. I just think it sharpens the focus a little bit, that was all. Thank you.
Okay.
So the Devon Carbon Plan.
So we're going to ask the county if they would do it every 6 months.
Yeah.
Right, we can ask them that. I haven't got a problem with that. I don't think so. It will be up to the county whether or not they do that or not. Okay, Diana, did you want to come in on anything?
And this seems to be the elephant in the room in terms of significant carbon emissions in the county that nobody seems prepared to account for. I've just in terms of, I'm just quite interested in the equalities impact assessment, because it's talked about a number of religions might not be interested in retrofitting all faiths have been leaders in campaigning for action on climate change for many years, and there's thinking very hard about, I can only think of one organisation, one faith group that wouldn't be interested in that, because they probably wouldn't be interested in much that goes on in civic life. So I just would like clarification of that, because I really welcome the support of the faith groups in contributing towards action on climate change. I would like the report here asked us to note the carbon plan, and I welcome the additional recommendation. But is there going to be a piece of work which looks at where there is alignment and also divergent between Exeter's plan and the Devon County's plan, so that we're sort of clear about, you know, what can be impactful, what's not, what we should be prioritising. Councillor Violet, you just said it was their report and not our report, but we do need to make sure that we own and align bits that will support what we can do faster, and actually maybe there are things that we aren't going to be prioritising that we could support the county in. So we have to have an absolutely reciprocal and close working relationship to make progress. And just in terms of the oversight, we are currently in discussions within the council about an oversight committee to monitor progress towards meeting our net zero by 2030 targets. So I would, I assume that the county know this, and to have information that is timely and contributes towards the assessment of that progress is really going to be very important. Thank you.
Right, thank you. But just to say, Councillor Moore, I'm more than capable of explaining what I meant. It is their plan, not our plan. Okay. There are some questions to Emily. Scrutiny committee to have a chat with it, and I was thinking about the Exeter strategic board that we have, but then I'm thinking, well, why just keep it to just those few? which I thought we were going to do anyway. So I'm going to reflect on that. I'm going to talk to the chair of the programme board and also some other councillors, because I feel this is an important item. If indeed Councillor Jobson it's to come back every 6 months, we need to know to whom it's coming back to. And I think that would be the place to come back, because I don't want this to turn into a scrutiny as such. Comment on the plan. Pierce.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Emily, for the presentation you gave there. And my comment really is just around 2.7, the amended recommendation. I think it's fantastic that that's in there, because we need to be shouting to all corners of the country, and particularly to our near neighbours in Devon County Hall, about the level of ambition and expertise that there is in this city, and the opportunities for them to learn and to work with us as we move towards our much more ambitious target of 2030 than their 2050. And if we achieve 2030, that's going to take them a long way to getting to their 2050 and possibly even being slightly ahead of that. So I just think it's great that we're sort of formally noting that level of
There are also gaps missing, I mean, huge missing bits in it, which is, for example, and we cannot, as much as we like, really what I'm trying to say, without legislation from government, make a marker so it enforces to all the construction. Then we still have every day new buildings being erected that is completely. This is, it seems to me that the report is
The end, Duncan, as a portfolio holder.
I think that the challenge for Devon County, as Kareem has indicated, it's a very significant challenge. They have both rural, urban, and coastal areas, and we think we've got transport problems in Exeter. If you live in some of the more remote rural areas, transport is a significant challenge. So I recognise that working towards we remain committed to both our net zero goals. We're working to make the council itself carbon neutral by 2030, no small feat, and to continue to facilitate collective working throughout the city to enable Exeter itself to be net zero by 2030. So we're still committed to those. So this plan has been, for county, has been brought together by many stakeholders and contributors, and it aims to deliver a very large and complex plan. So in recognition of that, but Exeter still aspires to achieve citywide by 2030. By the complexity of it. But we ourselves do need to deliver, and we intend to deliver. But one of our weaknesses is transport. That's 22% of the greenhouse gas emissions within the city, as we learned from the greenhouse gas report that came to scrutiny. Clearly, Devon County as the played an active role in it, and similarly last week's workshop on EV charging, asking Devon to view Exeter as an early intervention zone gives Devon an opportunity to explore solutions that can be scaled up across the county whilst helping Exeter grapple with the that Devon County Council's corporate carbon reduction, as in what are they going to do? And still aiming at
partnership, although I am hosted by Devon County Council. I can't speak on behalf of Devon County Council with regards to your additional recommendation, but obviously I'm sure they'll be very welcoming of discussing that with you. Do let me know if I forget any of the questions that were proposed to me, but with regards to aviation being an emission, we did work very closely with the University of Exeter in developing the plan, and we were told that data on aviation emissions in relation to Devon specifically, the data is very poor, and also that actually it accounts for a very small proportion of Devon's emissions. So that's why it hasn't been given greater focus. But it was discussed at various stages of evidence gathering, and there were concerns that, again, without sort of a national policy to further curtail aviation, we could actually increase emissions by pushing people to places like Bristol, if the county were to try and further limit aviation here. So it is a significant consideration, aviation emissions, but perhaps more pressing are things like buildings and on-road transport, for where we can take action at this point. With regards to the question about buildings and building legislation, there is a specific action to work with government on building regulation, because we don't disagree with you. We are concerned as a partnership about the current legislation and the ability for local authorities to enforce higher standards of building regulations. But there are conversations going on between local authorities about how we can try and ask for higher levels of build ahead of national policy. So we will continue to try and be vocal on that. I think also it might be worth highlighting as well that the Devon Climate Emergency Partnership target is also, it's not just territorial, it is also consumption emissions. So that does add another layer of complexity to it, because obviously it's challenging to get people to consider the things they consume, where it comes from, and the emissions that are created at source, and how we can consume less as well. Forgive me, were there any other points that you wanted me to respond to?
Okay, so before I move and go to the front, a couple of things I need to do. First of all, on 2.5, now, for the technical people in the room, biannual, does that mean every 2 years? Or does it mean 2 in a year? Twice a year, as long as we understand what it means. So we need to amend 2.5 to say that we seek a biannual update is presented to Scrutiny Committee, if you're happy to that. And also, I would like to further add, and I'll get a seconder for these in a moment, Mark, is a further amendment or addition of 2.8 to arrange an all-member briefing stroke scrutiny with presentations from DCC. This presentation needs to, otherwise you're going to have your first meeting in 6 months' time, and people say, well, what came before this meeting? Well, this came before the meeting. And why I say member briefing, because a scrutiny meeting doesn't allow for portfolio holders to come along. Well, this is in our report, really, and there may be, as Councillor Hussain say, so a briefing may be able to be more inclusive. I just want this to be inclusive to come forward. So that's what I would suggest, that we arrange an all-member briefing with presentations, if they come along, from DCC, just what we've heard here, and so some more detailed questions, and then off we run. So if I can have a seconder for 2.8 and that amendment to 2.5, please. Thank you very much. So all in favour of those amendments and additions as amended, please show.
That's Chair, the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mark. So we now move on to item 8. And as I say, I didn't want to rush that. It's a very important item, by the way, and I know the portfolio will be bringing some papers to the next executive around all of this. So it's all part and parcel of the big picture. And so we go on to number 8, and this is legal obstacles to Port Marine Safety Code compliance. Councillor Williams, can you read your 2 recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chair. Are we having them up there or not? Yeah, thank you. The commencement of work on obtaining a harbour revision order to continue progress towards Port Marine Safety Code compliance. And the second is the allocation of a one-off budget of up to £150,000 to allow for the harbour revision order process and to provide contingency in case of a public inquiry.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. David, who's batting for you on this one? You or Graham?
So I'll kick off, Chair, if I may.
I'll allow Graham to have his bit afterwards. All right, David.
Yeah, I won't talk for very long because we have got Graham here, so we want to utilise his expertise. But back in 2020, the council stated its ambition to comply with the Port Marine Safety Code, and that's for the management of the safety of the Port of Exeter. So part of that picture is to ensure that the Harbour Masters team have the right powers to keep water users safe, to deal with hazardous vessels, topical, and to enable the generation of income through fees and charges to contribute to the running costs of that operation. So the process of us gaining these powers is via a harbour revision order. So we're lucky to have Graham here tonight, who's going to explain further some of the reasons why we think this is particularly important, and also explain, with the events that happened over the weekend, how having these powers would have changed that.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening, everybody. The Port Marine Safety Code is the industry standard when it comes to the management of ports and marine facilities. And it is set by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, and it's not obligatory, but if there is an incident in a port or a harbour or marine environment where the overriding authority is found to be wanting, then we could be prosecuted. And the penalties of that could be an unlimited fine or 2 years in prison for the harbour board. And we now have a harbour board that represents the port authority, and that harbour board, made up of councillors and independents, really are there in place to advise the council on the best way forward. I advise the board on what I believe in my professional capacity is the best way forward. What we need to do is get a proper grip of our waters. We have a huge stretch of water, both the river and the canal, and as David has alluded to, we had an incident on Sunday where a boat that was tied against Gabriel's Wharf, an old fishing boat built in 1947, sank on its mooring against the wall. We were alerted about 5 to 8, and we had somebody on scene. One of the team was there within 10 minutes, and he rang me, told me that the boat had gone down, and we called our contractor that we have in reserve to come in and help deal with the problem. That issue is going on, and we're doing a great job with the cleanup with our contractor. Now, the point being that if we'd had the powers of general and special direction, I could have issued the owner of that vessel, after a period of time and consultation, I could have issued him, if I wasn't satisfied with the progress of the restoration, I could have issued a special direction for him to leave the port within 28 days. And he would have had to do that. Failure to do that could have been led to a criminal offence. So that simply would have alleviated the problem that we now find ourselves in, with a huge cleanup bill to sort this problem out. And this is not the only one. Another problem is waiting in the wings, whereby some years ago, and I'm sure many people will be aware that my post was created just over 3 years ago. Before I came into post, there was a gap between the previous harbour master retiring and me starting. And in that time, a culture has sort of developed in the estuary and the canal, whereby sort of anything goes. You know, if you wanted to put a mooring down, then people would. They would go onto a beach in the dead of night, dig a hole, bury an engine block with a bit of chain off it. There you go, that's a mooring. Now, if the port authority have got a proper control of their waters, that sort of thing would not happen. We would just not allow it to happen. Some years ago, an old trawler, another trawler, came into the river, moored up on one of our mooring buoys, and just basically the owner walked away from it, sold it in the pub for about £1,000, and the new owner, one of these people who have a fanciful idea of living on a boat, because it's a nice thing to do, suddenly found he had no money. So he's walked away from it. So there we are with a 50-year-old trawler that's in danger of sinking on the edge of a major navigation channel. Huge issue if that vessel were to sink on the edge of a main navigation channel, particularly at half tide, when the boat would have swung right into the channel. The cost of removing that would have been in the £500,000 plus. So we took the decision to move that boat into the canal, and it's now at counterswear on the sludge berth. It sank twice. We've had to refloat it, and we are pumping it out twice a week at a couple of tons of water at a time. Again, had we had the right powers at the time, we could have given the owner 28 days notice to leave, and we wouldn't have found ourselves in this position. So to me, as your professional advisor, compliance with the Port Marine Safety Code requires a harbour revision order, and I would strongly urge you to sign up to that. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Graham. Sunk at the right time then, that boat, didn't it?
Nothing to do with it.
I'm not slagging.
Wasn't an inside job.
Just made a comment. Okay, do we have any contributions? Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much. The St David's councillors very much welcome the work on the Harbour Revision Order and think it's really very necessary. And I would like to, in light of the impact of this pollution incident at the weekend, because it's very serious, I wonder if the portfolio holder would make a public statement about this, about the impact to the environment and about the impact on potential canal users. The pollution has gone into the canal basin, and you can see it on the top of the water, which is obviously used for water sports. And I think people need to be aware of the impact and the fact that I don't believe that anybody can be prosecuted, and this is a real this is really awful what's happened. So I think the public ought to be made aware of this. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll think about that. We'll take that away and think about that. Councillor Jobson.
Thank you for the presentation, and group fully support the Harbour Revision.
Thank you. I'll open it up. I'll come to you at the end, Ruth. Any other councillor wish to make a contribution? Councillor Wright, Wood, and then Pierce.
Thank you. So you talked about things not being very popular. This might not be a popular decision with some people, perhaps. Is that because of charging people to more and to use the harbour? And if that's the case, could you let us know what's the average length of an average vessel, so we can see how much that charge would be?
That's a difficult question.
Because it's per metre, isn't it?
At the end of
Sorry,
to bring them all up.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Like a number of people, part of the induction that was offered to councillors was to actually go out with the team. I have to say that it's a phenomenal area they have to patrol, and talking to the people on the boat, the powers they have are actually extremely limited. And we all know that certain individuals, certain sector of the population, if you don't set some ground rules, will make it up as they go along, and it won't necessarily be safe. And certainly when I was out with the boat, we could see that there were some individuals whose speed was inappropriate for the area in which they were in. So I think the ability to be able to take action specifically against speed, but also as we've heard, to take action against vessels which actually ultimately stand the risk of sinking and polluting our waterways. So I'm all for this. I think it's entirely appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Graham, for your presentation. Always love hearing about the stories on the canal and the estuary there. And I think one thing we need to consider as we think about this recommendation is that we've got an amazing piece of infrastructure, an absolutely fantastic asset right in the heart of our city, and it runs all the way out to the sea, and that is the canal and the estuary. And any fees or charges or anything like that that may potentially, possibly, maybe at some distant point in the future be charged for use of that is not about creating a revenue stream to subsidise any other activity. It's about ensuring that we can take action to safeguard that infrastructure, that amazing resource, so that we don't have people coming in with no control over them, polluting it, using it inappropriately, making it a hostile environment for other people to go paddleboarding because there's somebody in their rib belting up and down at inappropriate speed or whatever it is. We need to get control over it so we can look after it, make sure it's there for our children, grandchildren, our friends, and all the rest of it there for the future to use. So just, I want to reassure anybody who might have concerns that this is going to be in some way used as for any other purpose than that. I mean, any revenue that may potentially, possibly, maybe come in the future is all about making sure the integrity of the canal remains, so that it doesn't flood double locks, or that make sure that we don't have trawler after trawler being moored up in the estuary and sinking. That's all this is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pierce. Councillor Williams, and I'll come into you afterwards, Graham, to answer lengths of boats and things like that. Councillor Wright. Right, in a moment. Let Ruth come in. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to pay tribute to Graham and his team for the swift action in containing the pollution from this sinking. They were out on Sunday first thing and working all hours, and they're working next weekend, craning boats out, all sorts of things. So this is absolutely fun. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure that the rest of the executive and other councillors here will want to echo my comments. This is for information. We took this paper to Harbour Board, last week's Harbour Board, for information, and they welcomed the pursuing of the harbour revision order. They have been waiting some time to see this happen, so they were very happy. And in fact, a number of our external members offered their time to assist with the process. I think that illustrates how supportive they are. Yes, there were queries about some of the detail, some of the comments that are coming out this evening in terms of charges, how you're going to work it out, those sorts of things. That is for the future. The important thing at the moment is actually getting the harbour revision order, and then the rest will follow, and there'll be further discussions. The main thing I think for people to take away with them is that this is about safety. It's about port improvements and maintenance. So it's not making profit. It is actually to cover the costs that we are already bearing. It's also to enable us to do more in terms of ensuring safety and the health of the environment in what's already been described as a wonderful asset that Exeter has. So it's keeping it clean, keeping it safe for everybody to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before Graham, I think Councillor Wright, did you want to clarify something with Graham before he answers?
I'm sorry, Chair. Yeah, yes, please. Sorry. The reason I was asking about the average length of boat, I was trying to work out what most people would be paying now as a levy. So from what I've just Googled at the average length of a boat, it wouldn't be very much money at all. No. Because if you can afford a big boat, you can probably afford to pay a small levy to moor it, to be honest. But also just a quick thing, maybe perhaps a comment to David Bartram about the consideration given to how the money would be collected. Is that going to be an extra resource upon staffing? Are you able to collect and manage all of that part of it without that being an extra request for staffing costs?
You did pop in a second time there, Councillor Wright, but I'm going to give you that.
I'm terribly sorry.
But it's a very good pub quiz question, the average length of a boat. So, Graham, if there's anything you want, and then David, I'll ask you to come back in about how much money we're going to get and how we're going to collect it and what implication that would have on us.
Yeah, I think it's fair to point out that all of the points that we want to raise as part of this harbour revision order process will go for public consultation. It has to, as part of that harbour revision order process. Public consultation is a major part of that. So scales of charges, if indeed we do levy charges, probably will, but all of that will be as part of that public consultation. When it comes to the people who are currently paying, well, the people who pay for the use of the water at the moment are the people who store boats in there over winter. And that's an important point to note, that they're the only folks that are paying for the use of the water currently. And that's 5.5 miles of river and 5.5 miles of canal. It's only the people who are storing boats that are paying for it.
Okay, I think the question around resources to collect is an interesting one. We haven't worked through the detail of that yet. I think it will very much depend on what the charges are and in what form we accept it. So we'd obviously like to go to cashless, because cashless is a much less expensive way of collecting money. I think with our existing resource we have a very small technical support resource for the Canal and Waterways team. We would undoubtedly need more time, but there are other technical teams within my area that we could retask to do that.
Okay, so I'll move those recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? Okay, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much, Mark. So we now go on to the Exeter playing pitch strategy, and actually we're going to, sorry officers, I haven't had time to tell you this, but we're going to change slightly the recommendation. Yeah, I think it means the same thing because there was some anxiety, but I've had a briefing note anyway from James, which makes it clear that these are draft options and actions for discussion, and anything would be discussed and there's decisions within anyway. So, Councillor Parkhurst, if you can read the revised recommendation, please.
Yeah, so that executive recommends and council approve. So it's just now 2.1, the Exeter playing pitch strategy subject to financial constraints.
Okay, and so that's amended. Can I have a seconder for the amendment, please? Second. Okay, so that is it. We've had it done. So is it James? You're James,
Thank you,
fire
Chair.
away with your thing.
So the report summarises the proposed Exeter playing pitch strategy. It's very timely. The strategy document is an important evidence base for the Exeter local plan, and also demonstrates our council commitment to protect, improve and enhance our formal playing pitches across the city. Exeter has a really strong community sports network, and we're very proud of our football, rugby, hockey, cricket and other formal sports that are played throughout the city. The strategy has been delivered to Sport England methodology, and we commissioned independent consultants, BLAP, to develop the strategy. And it's been widely endorsed and approved by Sport England and our national governing body partners. The strategy provides us with a framework for working with partners and gathering potential future investment towards delivering the highlighted priorities within the strategy. And the strategy is based on a significant amount of demand and supply analysis, working with national governing bodies, local leagues and sports clubs across the city to get us to this point. Through the report, you'll note that the strategy promotes a community sports hub approach, building on some great practice that already exists in the city. For example, at the Exeter Sports Hub, a partnership between Exeter College, the City Council and local sports clubs that we can develop and enhance further across the city at other locations. Extensive consultation has been undertaken with Sport England, national governing bodies, and over 100 sports clubs contributed towards the strategy, along with every school and a wide range of community groups in the city. Future proposals will go to open public consultation. The strategy highlights the establishment of a local steering group of partners to drive forward priorities and implementation of the specific programmes, both in terms of sport-specific priorities and site-specific priorities across the city. I'm happy to take any questions or points.
James, before we go into discussion, let's make it perfectly clear that approving this strategy, and we say subject to final consideration, that means all these things, all the proposals are all subject to where it needs planning and the appropriate consultations and that and blah blah blah, and also when it comes to expenditure at this moment, which he wouldn't be too happy with, and so it's case by case. So as long as we know
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before this meeting, Councillor Ballock and I had a conversation, and he told me about when he's a referee, about the problem that he has with taking home bits of rubber crumb with him in his sports bag. And so I wanted to ask a technical question about, because 3G pitches are mentioned here and the associated environmental forward and say, well, this is fine. People with disabilities to be able to
Okay, thank Okay, I'll open it up to the floor. Does any other councillor wish to make a contribution or question? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It works. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's a great report, and I think that its role is important. I come from Pinhoe, that's my ward. We've recently had a peer the quality of the facilities we have within the city, and great addition to
I'm just really pleased that Quidditch is also mentioned in here as a sub. Read the report, perhaps. I look forward to having some Quidditch in the future. Great report, thank you.
Officers involved and the consultants. As Councillor Moore indicated, this hasn't been a quick piece of work, and I've come in at the end of it, taking over the portfolio in May. So, yeah, I want to thank everyone that's put a lot of hard work into this. Yeah, really years of work and consulting community sports groups, national governing bodies, as James mentioned. And I also wanted to note, obviously, this is a playing pitch strategy, and it is that. It is not an physical activity strategy, which we also have, and it goes in line with our corporate plan. So, you know, it's recognizing the fact that although Phil might play football, not everyone wants to go and play organised sport. To invest in. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone that's been involved in it. It's a massive bit, but also important to note that it's a living document, as it says in 8.1. It's a living document that will be reviewed on an annual basis to keep pace with the changing sport.
a couple of points there for you to pick up.
The first question around 3G is a timely one, because the FA and other organisations are putting in a lot of wide range of other inclusive clubs, and also partners that you wouldn't necessarily consult with for a document like this, but I guess through the work that we've done, organisations that represent a really diverse range of communities within Exeter to support this document. It's a living document. It's not going to sit on a shelf. We will have a steering group to hopefully drive forward the delivery of it and also amend this document on a regular basis, because I'm sure we have missed things. It's a comprehensive document, but I'm sure that we'll be updating it on a regular basis, and we'd welcome any community group to continue to kind of feedback on the work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a point before I move the recommendations, on page 157, 2.62, I don't want anybody running away with the wrong impression. It just says, the LTA believes, not that they are entitled to believe it, but we don't. And so whereas we recognise that in the table, that is the position of those courts, we have no plans as part of anything at this moment to introduce charging to tennis courts or anything in Exeter. So I don't want anybody running away with that idea that this is a report that we've received. Okay, that's what I was trying to say. It's not a policy document or a policy document. That then please. Okay, all those in favour? So there's two recommendations. Yeah, you'll be present. We've got two recommendations there. I don't know who it is to move it, but it's noted that we got it 2 points. You see the recommendations behind me? Are they behind me? They are. It's behind you. That's next month, isn't it? It's behind you. So there we are, getting into the spirit of it already.
Programme boards. So as hopefully you've read, this is the report for the 2021-22 municipal year, and just highlights the work that Scrutiny has done in code. The rules, procedural rules that we produce this on an annual basis, and it's the intention now to bring that back into its regular cycle and to have this reported on an annual basis. The report was presented to
Thank you very much. Just to say, I do regard its scrutiny's report is a matter for them. I don't believe it's my role or any role of the executive members to interfere in the work of the executive of the. And they should guard it preciously, and that's why I appreciate that. So I'm not sure if there's much we want to say about that, but full council, some members may want to. More that we take that attitude. Good. Scrutiny is it's good. So all those in favour of those two recommendations, please. I'll move it. Can I have a second? All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Recommendation has been carried.
Thank you very much. Month of November apparently is going to be a long one, am I correct?
It's shaping into a long one, yes, Chair.
Yes, there you go. It's shaping into a long one. Okay, good night, everyone.